Alright, hey guys. Welcome to SmashPad Streamkend for the weekend of April 27th. We are playing two games this week. First up is Thomas Was Alone. This was just released on PlayStation Network on Tuesday. You can get it for the PS3 and Vita. It's cross-buy, so one price for both. Right now it is $9.99 for everybody and $7.99 for PlayStation Plus members until Tuesday. So you can definitely get that now, and they've also added DLC. Adds 2 new chapters at the end. I played through this on my Vita, so I need to cloud sync it. All synced up. This is basically a platformer, sort of with an interesting art style to it, but they decided to go for a very simple art style, but pair it up with a story that makes it all seem make a little sense. So we're going to start from the very beginning. So before every chapter, do a little intro like this.
Thomas was alone. Wow, a weird first thought to have. Decided to start listing his observations for posterity. 1. The whole alone thing. 2. Portals. They led somewhere. He'd yet to work out where. 3. Falling. Thomas was absolutely fantastic at falling. He was almost as good at falling as he was at observing. Interesting. Thomas couldn't fall past this block. Think, damn it, think! What if there was some kind of inverted fall? Some way to... what's the word? Jump. It worked! Thomas had solved the great inverted fall mystery. A big jump. But Thomas noted there was no real danger in missing it. The world didn't want him to fail here. It was pushing him, but gently. This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and this all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable. This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him...
In every sort of levels, there are 2 of those little black dots hidden around in the levels. You get a trophy for every...
This all seemed a little dangerous. The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment.
This game was made by
He was starting to
Michael
suspect
Biff.
it might even be doing so on purpose.
He's a live-in English developer, indie developer. This game and one after, I believe.
Thomas wondered whether the portals were actually taking him anywhere. He felt like he was making progress, but there wasn't really any way to know. He seemed to be moving predominantly up and to the right, which might, or might not, be important. It might have been paranoia again, but Thomas could have sworn the world was becoming more complicated. It always seemed to be one step ahead of his skills. It had been designed just for him. He wondered why. Was the world testing him? No, too obvious. Something about the boiling, toxic, glowing water intimidated Thomas. He didn't like it. He certainly didn't want to swim in it. He made another mental note. 4. Water. Not good. To be avoided. The loneliness was getting to Thomas. No amount of observation or obsessive note-taking could combat that.
As you can see, it's pretty simple right now. This is very beginning stuff, so they're sort of introducing you to the world and mechanics. Although it's still pretty simple. It's basically X to jump. But as you play more, the levels get more complex. You'll have multiple characters to play. Adds more complexity that way.
Had a new theory. The world was training him. He could feel himself getting smarter. There was the mental list to consider. Over the minutes and seconds since his spontaneous generation, he'd become a pretty skilled jumper. He was evolving. He just wished he had someone to share it with. Chris took an immediate and deep dislike to the skinny red rectangle. Who the hell did this Thomas think he was?
Now they're starting to introduce their personalities. So he's met up with Chris here. Sort of easily agitated.
Chris had been doing fine. He wasn't the highest jumper, but he'd held his own. He'd even been graceful at times. Well, not actually. Not technically graceful, it's probably the wrong word, but, you know, fine. There was that skinny little runt leaping about like he owned the place.
So that's sort of the thing they do with all the characters they introduce. They have different relationships to gravity, different abilities, different sizes, and all that.
Glowy white thing. Only Chris could get to it, which of course made it all the more enticing. What would it do? What new opportunity might this switch open up to him? Great. Another chance for Thomas to jump slightly higher than Chris. How fortunate. Seriously, this made the whole switch pressing thing entirely worthwhile.
So basically every end of the level is going to be these little outlines you're trying to get to. So even with the simple mechanics,
was this good? Because on the surface, it did not seem good. Chris was pretty scared. Little Red seemed fine, happy to be on his merry little adventure. Chris couldn't shake the feeling that things had taken a significant turn for the worse since Thomas had joined him. Sure, he'd been able to piggyback his way to ever so slightly higher platforms, but where had that got him? Well, to ever so slightly higher platforms, which was sort of his point.
So for me, it's really like the story, the narration, it's really well written. As I started introducing more characters, more personalities, they really do a good job of adding a bit more to it than just the platform. It's just a platform. You can already get it. The story sort of gives you a reason to want to keep playing. Hear more and keep doing it.
Chris stared at Thomas with pure hatred. He seemed so very happy at their situation. Friends together, a brave fellowship of quadrilaterals on a quest for greatness. That would be fine. But it was all the obvious observation that Thomas was doing which grated. Every time they saw something vaguely new, Chris would hear a satisfied little from the vaulting idiot. He hoped the next portal would split them up, if only for a few levels. John knew. He knew that this was his chance, a moment to shine. This was game day.
So now we got a third character.
would not do. John needed room to show off his exceptional skills. As it was, he was trapped on the wrong side of these little dot things. Where did they come from, anyway?
This can jump really high. So.
John inhaled the air of the open space, and it smelled of awesome. Time to flex those muscles, to put his training to use, time to show those little dots how it was done. John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years.
This is a little bit small. So I'm switching between these characters with the R1 and L1 button. So it ends up getting a little bit weird where we got several characters and you switch between them as quickly as you can. See one of the dots right here. Yeah, they're pretty hard because they're sort of little tiny squares with an outline, black outline. As you can see, all of the level is black, so it hides it pretty well.
John was happy to keep helping. He felt it was important to his image that he was seen to help the little guys.
confusing having to go back and get everybody up on the same page. It's not too bad. It's a bit easier later on when we get to the space to sit these guys on. So it's at least good that you take the bottom character and make them a little bit if you need one. You can't jump with somebody on top like that. Maybe like a couple of instances. Generally, you're not going to be able to.
He didn't mind them so much either. The red one, Thomas, had a charming way of applauding every time John jumped. The angry orange one was less immediately likeable, but his unremitting cynicism and tutting amused John. Interesting. A floating target. This would require coordination, balance, and timing. John was sure the dots would be lost, but he was happy to guide them to triumph. That's what the dots were for. They were there to extend John's reach, to make his performance even more impressive. John liked the thought. He decided to keep them. would die. She knew it would happen eventually. She was rubbish at jumping, and she moved slowly. She felt a little like her continued existence was breaking some kind of natural order. The crumbling pillar was a dramatic death, she supposed. Wait, what? Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was not, in fact, dead. It was at that moment that Claire realised she had superpowers! She'd need a cape. There was no getting around that. You couldn't be a superhero without a cape. Claire didn't want confusion. If you saw a cape, that made matters clear. You knew what you were dealing with. Claire was all about communication. And, you know, floating in water, which was her superpower. Right! Fear not, my skinny friends, for I am Claire, and I will save you! Claire needed to come up with a superhero name as soon as possible. Claire was rubbish. Claire arrived just in time, which was, of course, the perfect moment for superheroes to arrive.
So now we have this level here that's filled with water. Claire and Thomas have to work together to escape and open up passageways for Claire.
As the water began to rise, Claire vowed to save this little rectangle in as many restarts as it took. Claire wondered if Thomas would make a good sidekick. Or
We died, but
more
now
the
we
lone
can.
Avenger type. She'd like that. Claire arrived just in time, which was, of course, the perfect moment for superheroes to arrive.
So one of the other things that's really cool about this version of the game, at any time you can go over here to the commentary, turn it up, turn the voiceover down.
This is kind of one of those big
Ooh.
semi-scripted
Now you got
sequences
commentary.
because the pace is defined by the water.
Sort of a
so
constant
therefore
running
I know
feed
if a player's
of audio.
sliding, they are playing through at a certain speed. This is probably the most showy level. This is kind
You
of
can hear
this
right
is
there,
epic.
like
This is the
the-
one that always goes in the trailer.
So I really like that implementation of commentary. Because most other games I've played with it, like Portal, Ratchet and Clank, I think Tools of Destruction had it, and a couple other Valve games and a couple others outside of that. They all just have hotspots. You go over, click on it, and you hear a little bit about the area you're in. which is
moment
cool.
for superheroes to arrive.
This makes it more simple. If I keep playing the game, like I normally would, without worrying about having to not do the stuff I want to do. Just because I also want to listen to the developers talk about it.
As the water began to rise, Claire vowed to save this little rectangle in as many restarts as it took.
Okay, we're gonna finish this level and stop farting around and then move on to the next game.
Claire arrived just in time, which was, of course, the perfect moment for superheroes to arrive.
Yeah, so you definitely have to watch out. That little bobbing, what she does is throws a character up and moving around. And easily let him. They can jump right off as you're moving around and easily kill him.
As the water began to rise, Claire vowed to save this little rectangle in as many restarts as it took. Claire wondered if Thomas would make a good sidekick. Or was she more the lone Avenger type? Well, she'd like that. The sole hero in a world of rectangles and conveniently placed pools of toxic water.
So yeah, that's it for Thomas Was Alone for today. If you want to go get it, it's on PlayStation Network right now for the PlayStation 3 and Vita. It is cross-buy, so you get both for one price. Right now it's $9.99 for PlayStation Network members and $7.99 for PlayStation Plus members. There's also a DLC that's out called Benjamin's Flight. Adds about 2 new chapters. Completely new set of characters. And actually is can be fairly hard at times. They definitely do ratchet up the challenge of the levels quite a bit. And the game's not too long. Thomas Was Alone I'd be in about 2 hours or so. And I'm planning on going through again for the commentary and to collect those last few collectibles. Because I missed out on most of them throughout the game. Because as you can see, it's not too hard. So I plan on doing that. Getting about 4 or 5 hours out of the game. About $10, pretty good. Especially since I like the story part of it. And next we will be moving on to Poker Night 2, which is on Xbox Live Arcade right now. So I'll be switching over to that platform, so I have to stop the stream momentarily. So I'll be right back in a minute.